because what we're going to do here today is we're going to take a broken process in my business and we're going to figure out how we can automate it. That's what we're going to be doing today. Now, look, a business is filled with broken processes. There's all kinds of them, and it's the things that, break all the time that we need to capture them and figure out what to do with them. So I'm glad that you're here. We're going to dig in. And what we're going to start with today is I'm going to start with walking you through how I go about identifying when things break. We're going to capture that, right? We're going to capture it when it breaks because we may not always fix it. So welcome to Fix My Business. I'm Scott Todd. And here's what we're going to do today. What we're going to do is I want to walk you through a scenario in my business that actually broke. And what happened here is that whenever something breaks in my business, what I do is I make sure that I capture that. Now, I use a worksheet that I call the automation loop worksheet to capture it. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to identify every single friction point in my business when it occurs to me, not later, when it occurs to me. I want to find out what it is and I want to write it down, just what happened. Okay, I may not be able to fix it right then and there, but the mere fact that I'm capturing it, man, oh man, that is really half the battle right there, okay? So when you're doing that, when you're capturing it, essentially to me, what that means is that you're basically pulling an andon cord. So let me explain. You see, back after World War II, the Toyota Motor Company, it wasn't Toyota that we know it at the time. It was a different Toyota. They later changed it. But what happened was there was a shop foreman. His name was, his last name was Ono. And basically what he discovered or determined is that, hey, you know what? There's a lot of bad material. There's a lot of flaws within our systems here. Lots of flaws here. Things are breaking all the time. And production was terrible. So what he did was he proposed something that was just mind-boggling crazy. What he proposed is he proposed basically he proposed an andon cord, the ability for someone to pull the cord and stop the line. Think about that for a second. Here's a plant manager who is telling the world, we're going to stop the line when we see a problem. We're going to stop it when we see the problem, and we're going to fix it. Maybe not fix it. We're going to record it. We're going to note it, what the problem was, where it occurred, so that we can come back to it and improve. Because the way that it used to work is a car would be coming down the assembly line, some worker would see a problem, and they're like, nothing I can do about it now. That's another department's job. But what he did was he gave every employee the ability to pull the cord, stop the line. All of the managers ran to that workstation that stopped the line. And when they did that, they were able to capture the flaws in the system. That's the way I think about my own business. When there's a flaw in the system, I need to pull the cord, time out. I need to note it so that I can come back to it. I might have to go into some disaster recovery right then, and that's fine. But what I don't want to do is I don't want to forget about it. So many team members, so many employees, so many managers, what they do is they have a problem, they fix that problem, and they move on to the next one. Move on to the next problem. They never stop to record it. Back when I worked, when I was senior director and vice president in a company, a large company, Fortune 300 company, I saw this all the time. What would happen is people would identify a problem, and the employees would essentially fix it and then move on. But they never got to the root cause of the problem. They would just fix it, like, boom, it's not working. Cool. They wouldn't stop and go, wait a minute, why did that break? Why did that break? And I'm of a big mindset that says that if something breaks once, unless you change something, it's going to break again. Without a doubt, if something breaks one time, and you don't change anything, you just fix the little problem that was right there, but you didn't get to the root cause, it's going to happen again and again and again and again. And when it comes to automation, this is what people mess up on, is that they try to automate something, it doesn't work, or it has some bad disaster, they kind of fix it, and then what they do is they go ahead and like move on. They fix it right there locally and they move on and they never get to the root cause. In my business, there's a process that is very manual intensive. And anytime something is manual, it's the right opportunity to automate. But the problem with automation, the way most people do it, in my experience, is that they jump into the tool. Man, they see a tool, the hottest tool. Today, like my feed is just filled with AI agents. OpenClaw, Claude Code releases their, remote control. Perplexity does theirs. Manus has Manus agents. In a month ago, everybody was just waking up to the world of AI agents. Seriously, like they kind of exploded on the marketplace a month ago. A lot of people have gone down this rabbit hole, me included. I'm guilty of like, hey, let's go do this. Let's go do this thing. And you hear people talk about vibe coding and all this other stuff. And it's all cool. It's all cool technology, but it all follows one fundamental flaw. And that is people lead with the tool. They get the tool and then they try to figure out what the problem is. I cannot tell you how many times a day someone will ask me, hey, what are you using OpenClaw for? Like I've got it, but I can't figure it out. And I always say, like, that's like hiring an employee and not knowing what you want to do with them. We don't do that. We hire the employee when we know what job they should do. We don't just hire the employee and then figure out the job they do. So the same thing applies with technology. We do not, write this down, guys. We do not want to go and hire some technology to go solve some problem we haven't figured out yet. And this goes back to what I'm telling you about basically capturing the errors in your system, capturing the things that are broken in your business. Because when you capture them and you come back to them, it gives you a sense or the ability to not necessarily rush to judgment today, but it gives you the ability to think through what the logical solution is. And I'm a big believer in following a methodology to solving problems. So here's what happened in my business. I have this process that is completely manual. Well, I shouldn't say completely manual, but it was person heavy, okay? And what it revolved around is this email that one of my companies sends out every single week, okay? It is a defining service fulfillment in my company, meaning this is one of the things that we deliver on. We have to deliver on it, and we do it with precision. 8 a.m. every single week, same day of the week, 8 a.m. That's it. Okay, we don't miss that. But in order to get there, there's a lot of sequences that have to happen in order to make that happen, and it's heavy person. Okay, it's person heavy. And I want to walk you through what that looked like before. I'm going to tell you what happened, and I'm going to walk you through how I went through and designed this system. So let's go look at it. Here we go. I got to go here and here. And okay, I think, yeah, okay, we can see that. So look, I map everything out. I am a big believer that we map everything out. And the reason I think that way is because when you have it on paper, it gives you the best ability to see basically what's happening here. So this is the way that the process worked. What happened was we had data. Now look, I got to tell you something. Hold on. Here's what's going to happen is I'm going to try my hardest not to give you specific tools because it's never about the tool. It's about the thinking that gets you to the end, to build a system that's rock solid. That's the whole goal. It should be tool agnostic, okay? So let's go back to this thing. Here we go. And look, if you have a problem or a process right now that you're thinking of that you want to fix, throw that in the chat. Let me see it. Or throw me some love in the somewhere chat, some like or something so I can even know that you're here. I see 5 people here, but I don't want you just to sit there and like not participate. So let's go. We have data in a database, okay? We have data in a database. And what happens is we need to get that data into another system. We got to get the data from here into another system. And then along the way, what we have to do I almost wrote a tool there, is we've got to somehow generate this email. Okay, it sounds simple. I know it sounds simple. And some of you are like, well, couldn't you use Zapier? Couldn't you use some other tool? There were some restrictions here because the database was a lockdown database. It's not something that we could really get access to. We could, but we'd have to jump through some hoops and we have to open up some things, and we did not want to open them up. So we were kind of being a little conservative here, okay? And at the end of the day, we ended up doing it. But here's what happened. The data in the old way, well, what happened is the data is sitting here in this database, and then I'm going to call him human one, okay? Human one would show up, and he would go in and get the data. Then he would take that data, and this system over here is actually a web page. He would take that data, he would basically turn it into HTML, so he would modify that data, and then he would put it on that web page and schedule it. So what he was doing is he was taking the data from this database, grabbing it, manipulating it, putting it onto this website, but saying, hey, don't show this data until 2 days from now. Okay? So he's scheduling the system. That's the first step there. And along the way, he had to take this data. He had to clean this data, by the way. And when I say clean the data would have things like white spaces around some of the fields, meaning that someone might put a space and then the data, or maybe a space afterward. And so he would have to go through there. He'd have to clean that up. It was really like a Python script that he would run to clean it up, to beautify it, to turn into this HTML that would go over to there. So think about the actions that are there. He's having to pull this data, extract it, clean it, run through some scripts, make it pretty, and then put it on this website. How long does that take? For most entrepreneurs who might be doing something like this, the common flaw might say, oh, it only takes me 5 minutes. It only takes me 5 minutes. How many of you think that way? Oh, this is a 5-minute task. I'm just going to keep doing it. I'm not going to give it to a human. I'm not going to give it to somebody else. I'll just do it. It's 5 minutes. It's 5 minutes. It's probably that 5 minutes is probably the worst investment a business owner can make. If you're saying it's only 5 minutes, only 10 minutes, only 15 minutes, man, you are making a mistake. Don't do that. Don't do that. All right. So here's what would happen is we're taking this data, we're getting it teed up onto this system. My human guy here, he would then take this and he would come over here and he would think about the headline. Now, the headline is never really about the headline, okay? Anybody can come up with a headline. Like, you can come up with a headline in a matter of seconds. Just say this or say that. But in my organization, what we were doing is we were taking the data, looking at trends. We were trying to figure out what would be a good headline for this week. Is there something on the calendar that we should be aware of? Is there something that we should, is there a holiday? Is it Valentine's Day weekend? Okay, whatever it is, we wanted to be kind of relevant in there. Is there something in the news that we could talk about? Is Bitcoin crashing? Are the stock markets tanking? Like, whatever it is, okay? We wanted to maybe play off of that, so we would spend a little bit of time thinking through what that headline would be, how we could word it, going back and looking at prior weeks' trends of open rates and click-through rates and all this other stuff. We spent some time to do that. And I think that's an important investment of time. because that headline is so important in an email. Really is. So he would write the headline, and then what he would do is he'd take that headline, back up to human one, he would take that headline, and then he would prepare the email. Now, one of the things that's important to understand about this is that human one here, this guy, he was tasked with doing this on Fridays. You do this whole thing on Friday. And what you'll notice is that this whole thing, it really is human driven. Yeah, this up here is a Python script. But he is sitting at a computer doing things, right? Like he is physically moving data around where it needs to be to get everything set up the way that it wants and to get this whole thing scheduled. One of the important things to realize is that what I just said, it was number one, human intensive, but also second, it relied on him to do something on a Friday. Okay. And the reason I stress that a lot is because whenever we're dealing with processes, whenever we're dealing with systems, we run into 4 triggers. Okay. The 4 triggers are manual, which is the worst trigger ever. If you have to remember it or a team member has to remember it, worst trigger ever. Time, like the process just starts automatically on some given time. That's beautiful. Right? Time marches on. It's 8 o'clock. It's 7 o'clock on Thursday when Scott does his live stream. Bam, the thing goes live. That's the way that it works, with precision. Okay. The next one is an event. A process can kick off with an event, meaning like, I don't know, let's say that I make an appointment at my doctor's office. Well, when I make the appointment, maybe the mere fact that I make that appointment triggers some other event. I made a dinner reservation for a couple months from now because the restaurant was too hard to get into. I had my AI agent. I said, I want to go to this restaurant. Just figure out how to get me in there. Well, it figured it out. I'm in there on April 19th. True story. April 19th, I'm going to dinner. There's nothing special about that day other than that's the first time that my AI agent could get me in there. My AI bot got me in there, which is a cool experience, by the way. But see, that's the thing is the minute that he made the reservation, guess what? I got a text message and an email. See the trigger? The trigger was the event. The fact that I made the reservation triggered the email and the text. The next one is condition. Okay, a condition can be really anything. If it's going to be 70 degrees out today or higher, then do this event or do this automation or do this process. So you have conditions, you have time, you have events, and then you have manual. And like I said, the manual is the worst, okay? Because it requires people. And people sometimes don't do what they're supposed to do. And that's what happened here. Okay? So what happened here is that instead of the play looking like this, and by the way, it was not a set time on Friday. It was just Friday. That was it, just Friday. Okay? We could argue, well, you should have given a time, and maybe I should have given a time or something. But here's what happened. On multiple occasions, Friday, which was the goal, became Saturday. Multiple occasions. And you would do a course correction as the leader of the company. You'd say, hey, no, we do this on Friday. We do this on Friday. Okay. Sorry. And like I've had multiple human number ones. It's not like this is the only human number one, right? I've had number of human number ones who are supposed to do this task. And you tend to see the same pattern. Friday becomes Saturday. Saturday becomes Sunday morning. See, it's too easy to slip. When something's supposed to be done on a given day by a human, it's too easy to hit the pause button and come back to it later on. That's the reality of the world, right? Like, you do it. You make a to-do list. I'm not being mean about when I say you, because you means me. I do that too. I'm making a to-do list. I'm like, I'm not going to do that today. I'll do it tomorrow. You do it too. I know you do. Until the deadline's there, you're like, I got to do it now. Now, maybe you guys are like, I don't do that. I don't do that. I do it now, man. That's cool too. Friday becomes Saturday. Saturday becomes Sunday. Sunday could potentially be, oh man, I didn't do it on time. And as a result, the email didn't go out at 8 o'clock. Oops. Oops. Oh no, I forgot to send the email. Send it now at 10 a.m. Send it now at 4 p.m. You know that meme that says, you had one job. You had one job. Sometimes when that would happen, I want to say the same thing, even though it's not just one job they had multiple jobs. I'd be like, this was your thing, man. This is what you were supposed to do. How did you not do it? Because Friday becomes Saturday, Saturday becomes Sunday. And then they're on the deadline. And then it's the oops. But look, humans have problems. And I don't mean that to be mean either. But guess what? Life happens. Life happens. And you can have all the intent in the world to do this thing on Saturday. And life jumps in the way. And then the next thing you know, you have a family emergency. You're just tired. You catch the flu, whatever it is. And then you miss it. You miss the deadline. See, it's too easy to be human. That's why I don't like manual triggers, because it's too easy to be human. And this is what was happening. What was happening was, even though this whole thing was supposed to be done on Friday, too many times it was slip into Saturday. Too many times it was slip into Sunday. And I would watch this. I would watch that it wasn't done on Friday. And then I'm watching it on Saturday to see if it was done. Because I'm not a micromanager. I don't believe in micromanaging people. To my team, I believe that you're an adult and that you have the full capability of doing a task that you're assigned to do. And guess what? You should do it if you want to keep your job, right? Like, that's the way that I think about it. And oh, by the way, just so you know, these videos that I do, guys, that I do for you to try to help you see how I think about the business and attack the problems in the business, or to answer the questions like I do on the Fix My Business podcast. You know what? When my employees, when my team members ask me something that I've covered in a video, you know what I do? Is I go back to my own library, the same library that you have access to on this show, on this channel, or through my podcast. And I send the team member the video. I just did that the other day. Literally, I had answered a question back in December. I had answered a question, an audience member's question. I answered it. And you know what? I even gave this scenario, like, hey, this happened. Here's the situation. They said, hey, the example that I used to answer the question was, we got a tax bill and they didn't know how to look it up. So they came to me. And the headline of that episode, I think it was episode 16, it said, if I can answer the question in 2 minutes, why can't they? That was essentially the question. And so I gave my example. Like, hey, people come to me with a bill. I do this, this, and this, and then it's done. I get it too. I get your frustration. So I started telling my team, do this and this before you come to me. Well, you know what happened this week? One of my team members basically threw up their hands and they're like, I can't figure this out, Scott. So I sent him my video. I'm like, here, see if this helps you. Guess what? It helped them. They did exactly what I said in the video. And they're like, got it. Sorry to bother you. You didn't bother me, but you learned something. So these videos that I make for you, they're also being used in my team with my employees. Think of this as my training videos. Share them with your team. Okay. The task wasn't done on Friday. And then I found myself worrying about it over the weekend. On Saturdays, I was worrying about it. Is it going to get done? Am I going to have to jump in and do it? And then I'm going back and I'm looking in the system, in the email system. Was it scheduled? Oh my gosh. Because as the leader of the company, I feel like this obligation. But at the same time, I cannot think of a CEO of a company that is worrying about a dang email going out. There's no way that the CEO of Walmart, Walt Disney World, or any other big company is worried about an email going out. That's someone else's problem. But in a small business, it's your problem as the owner. It's your problem because that's how ingrained we are in the business. And I got tired of worrying about it. And then this weekend, it wasn't done on Friday. See, I went and looked at it on Friday night. It's kind of what I would do is I would look at it on Friday night or I'd look at it on Saturday. Not because I wanted to, but because I didn't have confidence it was getting done. And look, for a very long time, it was getting done every Friday, but I still felt this need to go look to see if it's scheduled. Maybe I shouldn't have. But on Friday night, I noticed that it wasn't done. And look, it's Friday night. What am I going to do? Call the person who's supposed to do it and say, you didn't do it. I mean, I could have done that, but I didn't. And what I did was I said, okay, look, we're going to map out the way that it works today, just like I mapped it out for you. And then I'm going to go and I'm going to begin to figure out how I can automate this. And before we jump into automation, what I want to do is I want to make sure that we have a system that is automatable. And there's some messes in here. Okay, like there's some things that are messy in this process that probably need to be cleaned up. Okay, like it needs to be cleaned up because there's things that you know the human was doing, like cleaning the data, even though he was using some Python and also some manual looks. But if we're going to automate the process, we have to make sure that it is flawless. Okay, so we have to have some checks in here. We have to have some checks and balances in there. And that comes back down to the system. Because if you try to automate a system that has noise or that has problems, those problems will just amplify faster. That's it. That's the reality of the situation. So here's the methodology that I used. And I use this methodology every single time I'm going to not just build an automation, but when it comes to building a system. Because when you have some method in which you're going to build systems, then all of a sudden what happens is you have this methodology that you're just going to continue to follow. And that methodology, that system for building systems is what will save you. So here's my system. Here's the one. I introduced it to you last week in last week's video, and I'm going to keep introducing it every single week. I do a live stream because I think it's just so important. And here's my system. First of all, I want to capture the friction. Okay. So when I see problems, they may or may not get fixed right then, but I want to capture that. Okay. Like I seriously want to capture what's wrong. And so as I go through my day, if I see things that aren't working the way that I want, and my team members are trained on how to do this, and this video that you're watching today becomes part of their training as well. When things are not working correctly, we just capture what happened. Okay? And in this case, I had already previously captured Friday emails not scheduled. I had previously captured something that's like this. Very simple. So that in the future, when I was looking for another project to work on, another system to build, another system to automate or to get better or to improve, I could just go back to all my capture worksheets. And I didn't have to look too far. And basically what I did was looked and said, oh, yeah, I already have this one. Friday email is not scheduled. The mere fact that you get into the habit of just writing down what's working, I should say what's not working in your business, the mere fact that you just capture, like, that didn't work. That didn't work. That's not working. By you just having a system, a capture system. Think about the Toyota company and their andon cord. They pull, stop production. If you get all of your team members to basically capture all the stuff that's not working in your business, they don't have to fix it, but there needs to be some methodology in which we're going to capture all these flaws. Think about the power of the data behind that. You want to talk about improving your business quickly? That is by far the fastest way to do it if you have a team. If you don't have a team and it's just you, still do it this way. Capture every time get a notebook. You don't have to be fancy. Throw it in a Google Sheets. I do it on paper. I just throw it on paper. I got these pieces of paper all over my office, these capture points, okay? Now, when it comes time to build this thing, here's the methodology that I use. I build with scale. Scale. Now, what does scale mean? Scale is simple. Scope, clarify, automate the trigger, leverage the data, and elevate the experience. So let's talk about these. Scope, S, scope. Look, if you want to automate your business and you want the fastest way to automate the business, it's not what you think it is. It is not building an entire workflow end to end with all technology. Technology to technology. That is not how you do it. The way that you, number one, automate a business, but the other way is that if you want to build better systems, you have to think about it like a football team. The football team does not try to go from the 20-yard line to a touchdown. That might be the ultimate goal, and if they get it, cool. But you know what? It rarely happens, okay? There's a series of multiple plays, and any work that's going through your business is a series of multiple plays, okay? So what I want to do is I want to think about each individual play here, and it becomes a series of plays that come together, but I want to scope this thing out. In my company, every play has a name. Every workflow in my company has a name. We call it something. We call it the Scott's weekly email. That's a process. It's a process. It's something we deliver on, okay? Scott's live stream reminders. If you're on my email list and you got a reminder to come to watch this, well, guess what? That means that the system worked. Scott live stream save the date. If you're on my email, you probably got that last night. Okay? Every process, every piece of workflow has a name. In this case, we'll call it weekly blast. Okay? So the scope is I want to make sure that I'm not trying to like boil the ocean here. When I talk about scope, I want to say set up weekly blast from data to email. You might think, Scott, why do you write that down? Why do you write that down? Why don't you just jump in and build it? I think that's the problem. See, so many people want to vibe code. So many people just want to jump in the tool. So many people just want to be like, oh, let's just do this in the tool, but they don't stop and build the system that is automatable. They don't stop and say, is this even needed? Are these steps even needed? Can I eliminate some of these steps? Is this email even needed? that whole mindset of jumping straight into the tool and building something would be like a builder showing up to a vacant lot with some wood and a hammer and starting to build a house. There's no blueprint. There's no structure. How do you know you're going to get the wall in the right spot? How do you know that you're even aligning the house into the center of the lot? Many years ago, man, oh man, this is 30 years ago, 30 years ago, I had never built a fence before. I'm going to tell you, I'm going to just be honest. I'd never built a fence. I shouldn't say that. My dad made me build a fence with him on a farm that he had. He made me like build this stupid barbed wire fence. I was out there 8 years old trying to build this thing, going post to post, digging. I was 8 years old, man. I had no strength. I'm like, I couldn't do anything. I was like dead weight around the fence building episode over here. Maybe I could take the hammer and bop in the little nail things that held the barbed wire in there. I remember doing that. I was pretty good at that. Years later, I need to build a fence at my house. So you know what I did? I'll tell you what I did. I'm like, well, this is where the fence is going to go. I didn't put out any rope. I didn't put anything and make sure it was straight. Post hole, boom. Put a post in there, secured it, went to the next one, boom. Guess what? You know what that fence looked like? Like this. It was ridiculous. That fence was ridiculous. I remember looking at it and I'm like, ooh, that's bad. That looks terrible. My wife looked at it and she's like, that thing is terrible. I'm like, 100% it's terrible. It's terrible. Yeah. My dad came to look at it. He's like, where'd you learn to build a fence? And I haven't. That's the equivalent. That is the equivalent here. If we don't stop and clarify the flow, that's this part. Okay. And this clarify the flow is building out the map of the data step by step. Okay, so I'm going to come back to this one because I'm going to take it on its own piece of paper, clarifying the flow. Automate the trigger. When do I want this to happen? Because remember I told you that I was using humans and it was manual and it was terrible. Okay, it was literally a terrible experience. So I don't want to automate manual. Like I don't want the trigger to be manual if at all possible. What I want this done on Fridays at 9:30 a.m. No matter what, I want this work done Friday at 9:30 a.m. And so now I have a trigger here, and my trigger is time. Remember, there's 4 triggers, okay? I chose time. That's the one I want. Leverage the data. Leverage the data. What does this mean? So many times people will build automations and they just assume that they work. There's no rhyme or reason. There's no confirmation one way or the other they worked. Maybe there's some confirmation that it didn't work. Maybe you get an email that said, didn't work, error. But come on, I want to know if it worked or not. And that's why I talk about leveraging the data, is because I want to know on the positive side, hey, it's done. On the negative side, if it didn't work, I want to know not just that it didn't work. I need to understand why it didn't work. What broke? Think about that for a minute. There's so many automations out there that are not leveraging any of the data. Maybe the service that you're using will email you that it didn't work. Maybe. But that doesn't solve your problem. How do you know it really worked? How do I know that email is still scheduled? I need some confirmation, whatever it is, whether I want a Slack message, whether I want an email, maybe I want a text message done, maybe it's in Telegram, whatever methodology you want. This is the time to lay that stuff out, because now you can go in there and say, how can we build this out to where we know what we want to know when we want to know it, that it worked or it didn't work. So leveraging the data, what I wanted here is I wanted a confirmation positive confirmation that it worked. And if it did not work, I wanted an email to my team, to one person on my team, okay? Because I don't want to be the one fixing it. I have a team, they're capable of fixing it, but I want to know that it happened so I can just mentally mark it off like done, and I want them to know that it happened too. But if something's broken, I want them to know, okay, so that they can fix it. And then elevate the experience. What is this about? Elevating the experience comes in multiple things. Number one is it comes into the fact that, well, what's going to happen here is that some of these notifications, some of this interaction will be based on interacting with me and my team, internal interactions. Some of these interactions will be external to you, to my customers, to my prospects, to the world. So what I don't want is I don't want this thing to be robotic too much. There's too many, automations where it sounds robotic. It's just like people read it and they know, like, man, that just sounds like it's a form letter. Modern day form letters. It's the reality of the world that we live in. What I also don't want is I don't want something that just sounds gibberish. So let me give an example. There was a time where I was running some process that when it broke, guess what message I got? It says, signal 19 error, alert, signal 19 error. I'm like, I have no idea what a signal 19 error is. What is this? It makes no sense. What is a signal 19? I had no way of knowing. I had no way of knowing what it was. I had no way of knowing where it broke. See, that's where we elevate the experience. Because if I just say signal 19 error, you'd be like, what is a signal 19 error? But if I said, hey, the link from here to the email broke, now it's actionable. And that's elevating the experience. That is the point in which we go back and we're able to now decipher how we're going to fix this thing, okay? So when it comes to elevating the experience, what I want is clear messaging when it breaks. In this case, because it's internal. If it's external, I want to make sure that I'm pulling from some way of knowing that I don't sound robotic or that the process doesn't sound robotic, because that's terrible, okay? So let's go back to this clarifying the flow. So here's what I did. Now that I know this, now that I have some idea of what I want, what I did is I started off at the beginning. And I said, you know what? Okay, we have our data. It sits here. And I got to tell you something. Automating your business has never been easier, honestly, especially if you're not a technical person, because with AI can help you do a lot of things. But my data was sitting here. And I said, okay, what I want is I want the trigger, which is Friday at 9:30 a.m. This trigger. When this happens, I want the system to go and get the data. Now, remember, I'm not talking about all the stuff that has to happen for this to occur. I'm just telling you, in a dream world, what do I want? I want the trigger to get the data. I want the data to come out and somehow get cleaned. Very similar to what the human was doing, but notice I'm trying to design this without the human. I want the data to be cleaned. And what that means is that, number one, I need to make sure that there's no duplicates. Number two, I need to trim white space. And remember, the white space that I was talking about is on some of the entries. Sometimes there was data garbage, noise, like the data might have a space at the beginning of it instead of just jumping right into the characters, or a space afterward, or maybe there was some anomalies in the data. But the duplicate was a big thing because people would submit the data twice. The next one was that there was a white space in there which would throw some other things off. And I'm not telling you exactly what tool we are doing to this, because at this point I'm still planning. I'm still planning this thing, okay? But ideally what I want is I want the data to be cleaned. In my ideal world, I want the data to be cleaned of all of this. I want a system, some system that will pull a headline for the email, and then using whatever tools are available, schedule the email. So it looks simple, right? And if you think about where we were, that's what I don't like about these notepads. Let's see, when you think about where we were, which was here it's all over the place, but it was all driven by the human. And in this world here, we're saying that we want a data flow here. Now, when I look at this and I think about this, I'm like, you know what? Pulling the headline, while this is an ideal situation, the reality is that this headline could be done in advance, right? Like we could schedule the headline in a system so that this human's not doing it, but it's pre-queued up, okay? Or better yet, ideally, could I, and this is the question that I asked, is could I use AI to look at prior open rates? Could I use AI to look at prior open rates, prior click rates based on the headline? Because remember, a headline will drive those things. A headline will drive that. It's actionable. So I had a whole list in a database. I had a whole list of open rates and click-through rates and headlines. So I tested it. Hey, AI, can you take this data, process it, use some, machine learning to say, this is the trend that I see. Go do this. And does it work? See, we don't know until we try it. It's all about experiments sometimes. So that's what we did. In my ideal world, we would have AI pull this headline or create the headline based on data and then schedule the email. Notice that there's no human involved here. But this can't be it because I haven't leveraged the data yet. Like, how do I know that it's there? So what I want ideally is that once the email is scheduled, positive feedback, or if anywhere in this process that it dies, okay, I'm going to put this up here. Error. If anywhere in here there's an error, I want that error loop triggered that sent an email. Okay? So when it's done, I want positive confirmation that when it's done. And if it's not done and it generates an error, I want to know that. With this plan in place, with this mapped out, this process, I thought it was pretty good. I'm like, okay, now we have a clean system. There's multiple stops along the way that the data can stop at and get processed in whatever way, and we can go and we can build this out. And when it comes to automation, there's two types of people, maybe three. Two types of people. You are technical. You can go do it. Cool, go do it. Go figure it out. API keys, API calls, leverage. You can leverage that whole thing. There's workflow machines like N8N. I'll tell you what I did is I sat down with AI and I just said, hey, my data's over here. I want this. I want the trigger. And it basically built it out. I didn't use N8N or Zapier or anything. It's like, hey, you need a webhook for this. I'm like, cool, build it. And it built it. It's like AI literally built the entire process just by me telling it what I wanted the process to be. But instead of trying to piecemeal that whole thing together, what I did was I started off with a clean slate. What does this process look like? So that I could say, This is where my data is. I want this thing to happen on Fridays at 9:30 in the morning. I want you to go get the data from here. This is what I want you to do to clean the data. 1, 2. I want you to look in this database for all of the old headlines and the convert rates, the conversion rates, the open rates, and the click-through rates. Go get that and give me a new headline. And when you do that, and it's all clean, schedule the email. Let me know. I want to see it, by the way, too. I do like to see it. And if there's an error along the way, let me know. And AI built it. AI built that. I'm a technical person. I get it. Maybe you're not a technical person. And I don't want you to fear. Because maybe you're like, I have no idea how to do that, and nor do I want to. Cool. The good news is there's lots of people out there that will do it. There's lots of technologists that will be out there happy to help you. And they're affordable. They're not unaffordable. You can go do that. The third type of person is probably someone who's tech curious. Maybe you're like, I don't know if I can do that or not, but I'm willing to try it. You'll probably be able to do it, right? But see, the thing about automating your business, as I hope I've shown you throughout this entire, 48 minutes, something like that, a little bit more than that, is 52 minutes, is the whole thing about it is that it's never about the tool. And it's never about jumping to the automation. We have to build systems first. And the way that we're going to build these systems is we're going to think of them as football plays, a playbook. We're going to map them out. And we want our ideal situation. What is the ideal situation here? And in my situation, I wanted to get rid of the human as the trigger, because that is the biggest weakness along the way. Now, as this process continues to work, we will look for future weaknesses because there will be things that break. Let me give you an example. Right? So the trigger, that's easy. That, as long as there's power to the machine that's triggering this whole thing, we're good. As long as the internet works, we're good. That's a questionable thing, right? Like if the internet stops working, or if the machine, there's no power, I got a failure point here, but I'll get alerted, okay? My next failure point is right here where I tap into some AI. If the AI models aren't working right, that's a problem. This is a Python script that's powering off of this same thing. So this is fine as long as there's power to the internet, okay? As long as there's power in the internet, I'm good. Here, I have a risk of AI being down. And here I have a risk of the internet being down because of the API doesn't work. So if this email service is down while all this is working, it's going to produce an error. But if everything flows correctly and the internet's working correctly and the world is working properly, then this system will continue to work until something breaks. And that's the whole point, is now that this is mapped out, I know exactly how this goes. And I have a playbook for this play. There's something else I want to caution you on. When you're building automations, when you're building your processes, the temptation is to completely cut out the human. And I'm not a fan of that. In this case, I did completely cut out the human. But you see, the humans should still be involved, okay? Because when we get that positive confirmation that it's scheduled, a human should still go look at it. It doesn't have to be me as the business owner, but a human should go look at that to make sure that it's properly scheduled. Because believe it or not, and I can tell you this from experience right before today's show, sometimes even with the best of automations that do get things scheduled, they still schedule the wrong thing. That's a different topic for a different day, because before I started today's show, you should have seen the look on my face when I realized that AI scheduled the wrong email. But again, that's a topic for a different day. And it just goes to show you that even though you think that it's correct, you still have to have humans in the loop. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how much the automation does. You still need a human in the loop. And it's somewhat like a braided river. Braided river is where the river just, backs and forth like this. The thing about the braided river is that Sometimes machines are better at things, and sometimes humans are better at things. And we have to leverage both of them in every system we build, including automated systems. So it's never about getting rid of humans. It's about interacting between the two. Let the machines do what they're better at, and then let the humans do what they're better at. Which, for now, it's a very clear difference, but we'll always see what happens as time turns. All right. So look, find a process in your business. Find one in your business that you want to maybe automate or improve. Stop. Use what we talked about on this video, that framework, the scale framework, to slow down your thinking, to think about the process, to think about, hey, ideally, what does this look like for my business? And when you do, two things will happen. One, you will build better systems. You will build better systems. And the second thing that will happen is that those systems will be automatable. And I think that's the magic of the scale process. I appreciate you joining me. I hope that you learned something here today. And I will see you on our next live stream where I have another process that we will tackle to figure out how we can build it. And one final call to action for you. If you have a process that you want me to look at and you want to share it with me and you want to build it live, send me a direct message. Send me an email if you have my email address, or go to scotttodd.net/ask and let's connect, and maybe we can fix your process on a future show. I'll see you next time.